All right, welcome everyone. It's Dr. Cleopatra, and I'm here, of course, with Dr. Roseann, and we have a very special guest today. We have Tricia Greaves from Heal Your Hunger with us today, and she's here to talk about a very important topic with us, which is how to manage the urge to engage in emotional eating while we are a little more cooped up than we're used to being and have big stores of food sitting around the house. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Tricia. This is so important, and I know that our mamas are going to be really happy to learn from you today.
Thank you
and that's
so much.
cute because everybody's talking about this. So
Yes.
I want to do justice to you, Tricia, and read
Please
your bio.
do. Please
right?
do.
You've been a lifetime working. So
Yes.
it's actually, do you like to be called Tricia?
I go by Tricia Nelson.
Yeah, Tricia Nelson lost 50 pounds by identifying and healing the underlying cause of her emotional eating. And she's an emotional eating expert. She's helped so many women. You know, she's also one of our superstar friends.
Yes,
And she's the author in the #1 selling book called Heal Your Hunger, 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. And she is also the host of a very popular podcast called The Heal Your Hunger Show. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you, ladies. I love you both so much.
We love you so much, and I'm so sorry that I chose your wrong last name.
No,
the
don't
wrong
worry about
last name to refer to. So thank you for that correction.
That's okay.
And
I use the middle name on Facebook, and that's why it throws people.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, it says Tricia Nelson right behind you, so that should have totally clued me in that you only needed one last name.
Hey, we're not perfect. We're homeschooling. We're managing a business. We're doing all
right. That's right.
We're
You can never do any wrong in my book, Dr. Cleopatra.
Oh, I love you so much. I feel the same way, likewise. And so it's so beautiful to have you here, Tricia. And this is a topic that's coming up a lot. People are making jokes all over the place about how much heavier people are going to be coming out of quarantine, coming out of social isolation or social distancing. Hopefully not social isolation, because you're still connecting in the ways that we have available to us, just like we're doing here. But can you talk to us a little bit about this and about the psychology behind the drive to engage in eating out of feelings as opposed to hunger, and then also some things that we can do about it?
Absolutely. This was a big problem for me. As Dr. Rose said, I was 50 pounds overweight and definitely an emotional eater. So I didn't need, this pandemic situation as an excuse. I eat all the time. So I thought I just loved food, and I thought that was kind of the beginning and end of it. But as I struggled more and more with my weight, and I, couldn't lose the weight no matter what I tried. I tried everything. I tried pills and potions and lotions and, all kinds of, 12-step programs and therapy and all this. And it was just a constant struggle for me. So what I finally did and how I got help is I started to identify and heal the root causes of emotional eating. So it was when I started dealing, because I wasn't like ignorant about what to eat, like what's healthy and not healthy. I knew about good nutrition. I mean, most people do, we're not dummies, but being able to follow through on what I knew was the kicker. And so, and I think more than ever right now, that's the truth. And, I teach people about the underlying causes with a very simple thing called the PEP test. And you see, when we're going overboard and eating too much, it's not just that we like food. And I've identified, I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I've identified 3 primary emotions that really drive emotional eating. And the PEP test is an acronym. The first P stands for painkiller. So we use food as a form of painkiller. Why? Because we have pain, and it's usually emotional pain, right? It's either stuff that's happening right now, which is like we're in a pandemic. That is pretty painful of a reality. I mean, sometimes I wake up in the the morning, I'm like, wait, was that a dream or is that real? And it's real, you know, and so that's really painful. And food, you know, I'm sure people are finding food just kind of like softens the edges of our harsh reality right now. And so food is a painkiller. The E in the PEP test stands for escape. So we use food as a form of escape. And it's like, you know, we just want to get away from that reality. We want to check out. And food, especially, you know, the foods we tend to choose when we overeat, you know, carbs and sugar and fat, my 3 favorite food groups, by the way. You know, we choose those things, and they do temporarily, you know, take us out of reality. You know, it gives us a serotonin hit. It kind of calms us. Those carbs calm us down, and we're just sort of feeling no pain. You know, we're sort of getting away from it all. And of course, we don't just sit and eat at the dining room table. We get our goodies. We sit in front of our bingeable TV shows, and then we really check out, you know, and it's like, we don't want people to call us. We don't want we don't want our kids wanting our attention at that time. We just want to like check out. So that's escape in the PEP formula. And the last P in the PEP stands for punishment. And this is something people don't realize as much. And it's more hidden. And so like, why would we want to punish ourselves? And how could it be a punishment? Like, I'm eating my favorite foods, my malt balls and my Reese's Pieces and my, you know, my ice cream and chips. And so like, that's a reward. That's not a punishment. We think of it as a reward. But consider when we go overboard and when we stuff ourselves and then feel disgusting, you know, and then the next day we don't want to be seen. We don't want to really talk to anyone. We certainly don't want to have sex, you know. Truth. And so then we're like, you know, that's not a reward. Like, we did that to ourselves, and that's a punishment. Why would we be doing that? And I just find that, you know, as emotional eaters tend to be, you know, and frankly, I just want to say for everyone's benefit, I think we're all emotional eaters. Like, even if somebody isn't a binger, they can still be an emotional eater. And I think that we're kind of hardwired to have an emotional connection with food so that we'll eat, you know, and subsist as a species. So I think it's a spectrum. And I actually have a quiz on my website where people can find out where they are on the spectrum.
Awesome.
Yeah, are they emotional eater or are they a food addict, which is the high end? On the low end, you know, you might go overboard now and then, like eat, you know, too much ice cream or too many cookies, and big deal, you exercise more the next day. Versus the food addict on the high end, that's really binging, really like food consumes them, you know, as much as they consume it, and it's taken over and it's causing a lot of adverse side effects. So if somebody takes that quiz, they can find out. But the bottom line is, you know, we are super emotional. And we do tend to take things on. So that the punishment comes from kind of this underlying feeling of guilt, you know, and sometimes it's just a generalized feeling that, you know, we're responsible for the whole world and we feel guilty for everything, you know, or we grew up with a religious upbringing that says we're, you know, we live in sin or whatever, you know, and so, and, you know, or we just behave badly because we're stressed out and we're, you know, we're snapping at our kids or our spouse, and that brings, you know, that weighs heavy on us. So we use food as a form of punishment. And that's just, it's this underlying guilt that people aren't really aware of because they're thinking, oh, I just want chocolate, and the focus is the food. But when you dig deeper, you start to see what some of these underlying causes might be. And that's really where we need to go. So to sum it up, it's the PEP formula will help you identify, you know, if you're using food as a painkiller, as an escape, or punishment. And these are for the emotions of pain, fear, essentially, and guilt. And so that's the things we want to just look for. What's going on there? And people can start asking themselves, like, am I really hungry right now? Like, we just had lunch a couple hours ago and I'm in the kitchen again. What's really going on? And you can start looking for some of those underlying emotions.
And can we talk a little bit about escape?
Yeah.
That's what's driving a lot of the overeating right now. And like some of my friends that are really healthy eaters and really take care of themselves, you know, there's sort of this level, these waves that come in the emotional components of this quarantine. And the first part is sort of like a shock. And then there's an adjustment period. And then now everyone's like, okay, I got to find my new normal.
Yes.
And they may have been stuck in the first two stages and they're still using food for emotional coping, right? As an escape mechanism. Yeah.
Completely. And I've been doing this work for 30 years. I've been thin for 30 years, and I find myself like wandering into the kitchen more. And it's this nervousness. It's this sense of like all is not well, all is not well. How can I like pad myself? How can I comfort myself? And it's not conscious. It's very unconscious, and I'm just amazed at, I was hungry for lunch at like 10:30 this morning. I'm like, there's something wrong with that.
I'm going through it. Usually I fast until 2:30, 4 o'clock. I, got up super early, 2:30 in this morning to start working. And I was like, I can't wait until the afternoon to have my first meal today.
Yeah, well, that's legit.
Yeah.
Come on, that's legit. You know what I mean? Like, you woke up at 2:30. It wasn't like it was 9.
Maybe, but in the past I would have been able to, like, it wouldn't have been much of a thing,
No, it's true. It's really hard right now. And it really is, we don't have our safety and our security. Our worlds have been rocked, absolutely rocked by this. We don't have that sense that everything's okay. I mean, usually even, living in our country, that's usually so supportive and wonderful, it is not a safe place right now wherever we go. And we can't find comfort in each other either, except virtually. We can't do the hugging thing and all the oxytocin hits we normally get. So it's a very insecure feeling. And, the most natural thing in the world is to try to comfort ourselves, and food is comforting. There's no question about it. So I think that's what's really driving this, but we can't keep going with that. I mean, I've heard the jokes too about the COVID-15, it's like, after this all done, we've all put on 15 pounds. Well, let's try to find some new solutions so we don't do that. And, what I find I have to do is, I mean, I've always recommended to my clients, and part of my program will teach my clients to start the day with some kind of spiritual practice, and centering practice, even if you don't believe in a higher power, something that can get you still and quiet and centered and grounded,
So
don't just
prayer, right?
Completely.
Prayer, meditation, journaling,
reading,
yoga.
Yes. Anything that can, just don't turn on the TV first thing in the morning.
Or your phone, right?
Yes. Give yourself an hour, and we should be doing this anyway, truthfully. So give yourself an hour first thing in the morning. If you have to get up a little bit, earlier, to make sure you've got this time to yourself before your kids get going, just give yourself this sacred time to really, really nourish yourself spiritually. And I really feel the need I walk and I pray. I put earbuds in my ears and I act like I'm talking to a friend, but I'm really talking to God.
I love that so much. That's awesome.
And I need it. I just need the support, and it's not like I got a hotline to God, but prayer is very helpful,
I love it so much.
So that's what I do. And I do meditate as well. And and I read little spiritual books too. So I say more than ever, just really try to give, and we have the time now, like we have more time, and just give yourself that time of spiritual nourishment. And I say it's kind of like putting money in the bank first thing in the morning, putting credit in there, and you can draw on it later in the day, because later in the day is when it gets harder. I'd say 75% of emotional eaters, have the hardest time from like 5 o'clock on. And it's hard because, our willpower is way down, and the stress is, we've compiled stress throughout the day. And it's just, you know, the world is worn on us. And so when we go to draw from that bank account, if we didn't put money in there first thing in the morning, you know, and it's on empty, you know, we are going to be reaching for chocolate and candy and nuts and chips to fortify ourselves. And so that's how we got to really stock up first thing in the morning on that spiritual juju so that we can really draw on it. But also, you know, we can get oxytocin from friendships and connection online and telephone calls and that kind of thing. And that is so, so important as well. And we have to up that too. I mean, now more than ever, we can actually call someone without making it a scheduled appointment, you know, and you'll find them. Like, people will answer their phone now. They're like, happy calling.
It's amazing. I know, it's so true.
Yeah, and that's really nourishing as well. So we just have to think about new ways we can nourish ourselves than just defaulting to snacking and nibbling throughout the day.
Yeah. And also, Tricia, you know, you talked about filling your bank, right? And I'd say under normal circumstances, once a day probably would do it, right? Maybe not. I know I have to probably 15 or 20 times in a day actually ground myself, just because I have a lot of, you know, energy that comes through in our office and whatnot. And I'm just a spaz, as I always like to say. So I need that grounding.
In a good way. A spaz.
In a good way. I'm like a happy spaz. And, but I would say, you know, doing a 5, 7, 8 breath or meditating, something really quick and accessible for under, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, you know, doing EFT tapping on a clavicle point. You need to be doing this multiple times a day in the quarantine because the level of global panic is literally vibrationally causing a lot of panic. Like, I've been so busy that I haven't been terribly stressed about it, but everybody else's stress is impacting me.
You
like,
definitely
I'm feeling it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was walking today through town and there's all these stores closing. I mean, they're closed because of the, you know, the lockdown, but the fact is they're not going to be opening again. And I feel like a psychic kind of global pain for everybody whose lives are so dramatically changed financially on account of what's happening. And so we do, you know, what we empaths do absorb that global pain, you know, and more than ever, like you're saying, Dr. Rowe, we have to do that. And there are really great little meditations like on Insight Timer, which is an app you can put on your phone and just literally just like shut the door, put the earbuds in, and just do 5 minutes of a guided meditation can really bring your stress level down.
That's so beautiful. I'll always remember when we were going to a philanthropic event to raise money for Just Like My Child Foundation, and a group of us women were in a big van together. We had driven there, and Tricia said, "Let's meditate before we go in." And I was like, oh, perfect. I was actually speaking there, so it was perfect for me. And we all meditated together for 20 minutes and it felt so good. And that's something we can do by ourselves, but it is also something we can do together on Zoom, on, you know, on Facebook Live, on wherever.
Yeah, yesterday we were all in a group together online, and we had a dance party.
We did, and Friday we're having a dance party, the collective dance party, which we had last Friday afternoon/evening, depending on your coast and if you're in the U.S. It was so fun, and it felt so good to dance together, right?
So great. So great. Getting creative. But also just all the fun, like I'm getting so many texts with some really cute, funny videos and creative memes and this kind of thing. And I just love how we're reaching inside and finding, you know, humor. We're finding humor and creativity, you know, that just is getting us through. And it's just the human spirit is so beautiful and so expansive, you know, and it's just, you know, squeezing us a little bit more and causing us to come up with new solutions for getting by and supporting each other. And that I find it so hopeful and so encouraging as well. So looking for the silver linings is really important as well. Instead of, you know, taking that terrible downfall into the rabbit hole, you know, of doom and gloom, we have to just really think of how we can, just keep our minds positive and just, again, focusing on the human spirit, focusing on the silver linings of being able to be at home, to be able to, have time to start that meditation practice that we keep putting off, or start that art project, or learn that language. I mean, there's so many cool silver linings to this thing that we can appreciate and really focus on versus, the negative news that's constantly coming over, the television right now.
Yeah. And all week we've been talking about the importance of routine in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I think the importance of routine in your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your exercise, is also really helpful and sort of combats that. I've trained myself to really not snack and only eat 3 times a day, which is pretty good. Not to say that you aren't hungry outside of those times, but I might have tea or something else in between. And that's just something I've always done. But people have to do what works for them. Can you speak about like structure and routine, even though they feel like they can't have it because we're in quarantine? You can.
Well, I love that you said that, because I teach all my clients something that I call 3-meal magic, which is eating 3 meals with nothing in between. And that schedule is so helpful, especially when we're at home and we're looking at all the stockpiled food, because it's so easy to just be like, wow, there's so many options now, I could just eat all day long, and I normally go out to eat. Like, I'm in LA and I've got all these restaurants, great healthy restaurants around me. So I don't cook. So now all of a sudden I've got all this food and I'm cooking, which is another silver lining, I have to say. Like, I'm finally forced to get the pots and pans out, and it's fun. That's what I just started making smoothies again. I hadn't made smoothies in a while. So
awesome.
yeah, but the 3 meals is a great structure. It's, to me, it's like when it's breakfast, have a real breakfast, like make it count. If you're not eating in between, you have to make those meals count. Like they have to be real nutritious meals with vegetables and protein, and, and they have to be tasty and enjoyable, like not diet food, just make it count. And then don't eat between meals. Like, to me, it's like kitchen is closed now. Like, once the meal is over, kitchen is closed. And I got no business standing around in the kitchen, opening the refrigerator door. So
and, for people that aren't working at home, this is an opportunity to do projects or do other things, right? Like I use the, saying all week of like, clean a drawer every day, like, whether it's little things or big things. Like, I have a lot of friends who are like, well, I'm working on a book now because I couldn't, because I was patients all day. But you can have all kinds of projects. You can, say like, I would put on my schedule, like I regularly put exercises right on my schedule. It's on my master work schedule, and nobody can put work in there.
Amen.
Yeah. Including myself.
Absolutely. No, schedule it. Yeah, schedule
it.
And schedule the self-care as well. This is my exercise time. I'm doing a class, bar class online now. It's on Instagram, and it's live. And I just have to make that a priority, because I'd be at the bar place if I weren't quarantined, and nobody can bug me then. So schedule it and make it a thing, just make it a real thing. So yeah, I think the schedule is vital. And especially with the meals, enjoy your meals, and then close down the kitchen and, and just be there 4 or 5 hours later for the next meal. And if you do that regularly, like at first it's super uncomfortable if people are used to snacking all day, but if you do that long enough, it'll become just a habit, and it'll help you when this is all over. It will help you in your life, because then you'll just be used to saying, oh, it's not mealtime. Like, that's not my food. So when you're at the store and they've got all these samples, and, you're at a, dinner party and they've got all these dips and all this stuff going on, it's just like, I'll wait for my meal. Like, I'll wait for dinner time, and it really cuts down, because we're never snacking on, rarely are we snacking on celery sticks and lettuce. So, it's always the chips, it's always the nuts, it's always, just really snacky, fattening foods. So if we are sticking to the 3 meals, we're cutting out a lot of foods that are really no good for us.
Yeah. And also too, like, okay, so people are quarantined, but they're in the United States, you're able to go to the grocery stores, right? And, we did the last time I went to the grocery store. So everyone else has already heard this. I shop in a food hoard every day anyway, because I'm Italian.
Okay.
We have stores, and that's just the way it is. So now I'm watching everybody else shop like I normally do. Like we would go through the store with like 2 grocery carts or whatever. I don't go that often. And when I go, I just load up, right? We go frequently for veggies.
Mhm.
And, but when I was there the last time, a couple of weeks ago, people just loaded up in junk, Tricia.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
if they're trapped with junk,
Yes. What are you
can
going
you
to do?
give them advice? Yeah.
I mean, really don't buy the junk first and foremost. Like you don't need it. It's not going to make you feel better. But now we have that added incentive that when the more processed foods, the more sugar we're eating, the less the less strong our immune systems are going to be. So it's like this whole new reality is that we have to stay healthy. Like
Yes.
we've got to make sure that our bodies are strong in case we do get the virus. I
Yes.
mean, most people are living through it, but it's the ones who are physically, they're fit and they're healthy. Those are the ones that are living through it. And so, gosh darn it, like, I mean, I've been preaching this forever, but now people are starting to pay attention. Like, oh, like I could die. The more sugar I eat, the more danger I have of dying. Like that was true before, but nobody paid attention because it's
Exactly.
like it's slow over the years, whatever. Nobody knows and nobody cares. But now it's like for real, so yeah, I just say really just this is a great time to learn how yummy, whole foods can be and
Yes.
how simple cooking can be. And I mean, I just made the most amazing salad last night, with like stir-fried vegetables and black beans and, I mean, in fact, beans from a can from Whole Foods. I mean, it's like I'm amazed at like all the yummy things I can make, but really simple ingredients that aren't processed, that aren't in bags and boxes. Like just get the fresh stuff, get the eggs, get the meat, get the veggies, and canned beans if you need it, but it's amazing what great concoctions and smoothies. I just get this big thing of spinach, how they have those big things of spinach at Whole Foods
Yes.
and
Yeah.
grocery stores. I just have a couple of those going and I just stick a huge handful in a smoothie with some vanilla protein powder and a frozen banana, and I'm like golden. Like it's great stuff.
Right.
So just getting out of the processed foods and the sugar is so important, and sugar is addictive. And I will say, if you have emotional eating issues, I'm certainly here to support people because it helps to get support with this. It's nobody can, if you're really addicted to food and sugar, it's hard to overcome it on your own. So, just like we've been talking about community, overcoming, food issues is like virtually impossible on your own because food's everywhere and it's socially acceptable. And, and frankly, to me, it's the hardest addiction to overcome because you have to eat. You have to take that tiger out of the cage, pet the kitty 3 times a day, and then put it back in the cage. And that's not so easy. Alcoholics can put the plug in the jug, but we can't do that if we're overcoming.
Such a great point, Tricia.
That is.
And the other part of this is like in terms of sugar. Oh, can you hear my in terms of sugar and whatnot, it also feeds your hunger and it also creates an emotional instability because when your blood sugar is up and down, you are going to feel more anxious and depressed and therefore lean on things that maybe are unhealthy. So there's this terrible vicious cycle in all of that. Carbs and sugar.
Completely. I'm totally a sugar addict. Like if I have sugar in my system, I just crave sugar. Like that's it. So I physically am addicted to it. Like if I eat it, that's all I'm going to want to eat, and that's why, I always say, some, like none is better than some, like it's actually easier to cut sugar out completely than to try to, moderate it if you have a sugar addiction. And most people, if they're overeating on it, there is that physical aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And I know this to be true of you because you won't touch a dessert. I've seen that because you've learned that moderation isn't the way to go. And we know that about addiction in general, but it's hard to convince people of that when it has to do with food addiction, right? You would never argue that, you know, if you're an alcoholic, you don't need to completely abstain from drinking alcohol, or if you're addicted to cocaine,
Yeah.
you would completely abstain from using cocaine, right? But with food, it's different. And so for most people, and so I think it's very powerful the way that you treat it like any other addiction, and you just completely stay away from it because you know that that's the safe zone for yourself. Tricia, you said you can support people if they're struggling with emotional eating, and I imagine that the everyday people need this kind of support, and that today more than ever people do. So tell us where people can reach you.
Sure. I have a Facebook group called called The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. So if you go to Facebook and type in Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating, you'll find my group, and that we have every day I'm posting videos. I'm actually doing a series in there starting tomorrow called Don't Eat the House. Success strategies for staying sane around food when you're stuck at home. So we're covering all different kinds. We're covering, you know, topics like boredom, idle time, you know, all that stockpiling, and also food scarcity fears, and your spouse who eats crap when you're trying to eat healthy. I mean,
I was going to ask you about that as well. What if it's not just you, but I have a spouse who's as healthy as I am, but I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. So. Yeah.
No, it's not. I have a boyfriend now, as you know, who but I haven't told you about his eating habits, but I'm discovering now. And like he eats cereal. He eats sugar cereal and puts sugar on his sugar cereal.
Oh,
that's how bad. That's how bad his sugar addiction.
We're all health professionals who are like.
I know, it's so funny. And then he puts butter on his bread before as part of his peanut butter and jelly. Not only is jelly and peanut butter, he has butter as well. I'm like, OMG.
But he looks so fit in the photos. I'm shocked. Anyway.
Well, he cycles like 50 miles a day. So that's why he certainly can get away with it. But I'm like, dude, that's not very healthy, you know? So he is catching on a little bit to the salads that I make. But the really funny thing too is, something I wanted to talk about. So that's one of the topics. The point is, just to answer your question, is the secret sauce to emotional eating now is where emotional eaters are hanging out. And then on my website is healyourhunger.com, HEAL, healyourhunger.com. And I do have a quiz, as I mentioned on there. People can, a free quiz.
Yeah, I think people would love to take that.
I want to get back. Yeah, I want to just get back to the dessert thing. You mentioning I don't eat desserts. It's really important for people to know, and it's just that I want to say this, is that, you know, just cutting things out might be really hard if you're an emotional eater. And so there are different steps you can take, and that's what I teach people, is an actual step-by-step plan, so that you can release things that aren't healthy with you without tearing it away. Because when you emotionally need the sugar, when you emotionally need that excess food, it sounds like hell to give it up. Okay. But imagine if you are able in a new way to address your emotions, to bring your stress level down, to have new ways of being nourished at the soul level, so that it's not even an issue, where you can just say no, and it's not a painful no. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. And that's what I teach people. So some people are like, I'm not giving up my dessert. Well, I get that. But imagine if you didn't, like, you cared less, like you just could care less whether you had it or not, then it's not a big deal. And that's the key, is if you want it and you're trying not to eat it, that's hell. That's diet hell.
That is
okay. Yeah. Right. But if you no longer want it and you crave yummy vegetables and things that are healthy for you, that's the sweet spot, and that's where the freedom is. And that's really what I show people how to do. And I'd love to connect with anybody who's struggling and wants that help.
I love that so much. And sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. Oh no, we have a question for somebody that says that they realize that they need this support from, they're an overeater and with sugar. And they're asking, how do you suggest people, who are struggling with sport? And I'm going to say they should join your Facebook group.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%, 100%. And just to, and I think what she's saying, this person who's asking the question is saying that she realizes she needs to completely stay away from sugar, but people respond to her as if she's being dramatic about completely staying away from sugar when she knows that that's the right thing for her body. And again, that is really the social pressure, but we all have to know what the truth is for our own bodies and to be true to that. And I can totally vouch for Tricia and say that when she says no thank you to a dessert, it's not a difficult, restrictive, restraining of herself. It's like, oh, no thanks. Like, I don't do drugs and I don't eat sugar, right? I mean, it's that easy to know. So I just wanted to say that you can get to that point even when it feels impossible to get to that point.
Totally, completely. Yeah, and the fact is, what the comment that was made, it's hard to, that's why you got to have your people. Like, that's why you got to be among other people who get what, like, I totally get that you, like, the minute you have some, you're eating all of it. Like, I get that, but a lot of people don't get that because they don't have that issue. They can eat a bite of cake and push the thing aside. That's not me. It's like, can I have the whole cake? And so, when you're around people who get that, it's like you're with your tribe. Like, people get how it is. They've had nasty binges, and they've gained weight and felt terrible. And it's like, when you're in your own like community with people who get that, other emotional eaters, it's so much easier to start making healthy choices because you feel supported and you're like, and you feel understood, and for a long time, people live with this problem thinking they're the only ones who do these strange things with food, and when you're with other people who do it too, it just makes it so much easier and you can just start getting on a healthy path much more quickly.
That is
Absolutely.
so powerful. So if you're looking for support, definitely join Tricia Nelson's group, The Secret Sauce to Ending Emotional Eating. And she has her series starting tomorrow, Don't Eat the House, which is really clever. And I know we'll be packed with incredible information. Tricia, we're so excited that you came here to be with us and with our mamas, our mamas and mamas to be today. Are there any final words that you would like to leave the mamas with?
I will just say, certainly if you're listening to you two, to Dr. Cleo and Dr. Rowe, you're doing the right thing. Like you guys are just total goddesses. I love you so much. And whatever you say, I would do if I were having a kid. So,
Aren't you had kids. Well, you are truly an expert in emotional eating, and I love the advice, and it's very empowering. And, change the mindset. Instead of saying, you're never going to do this, change your mindset to, I'm going to love this more. And I mean, that right there is incredible. Yes. Truly incredible.
And getting away from that black and white thinking, you mean I can never have sugar, I can never have that favorite food, or whether it's, that's never is a long time. So I'm like, I'm keeping it in the day. Like, I'm doing it just today. That's all I got. Just today. That's all we have. So one day at a time definitely helps a lot.
I love that so much. Tricia, we love you so much. Thank you for blessing us with this time to learn from you. You are such a whiz at this topic. I mean, it's just astounding to me how clearly you understand this and how well you are able to articulate what your community is experiencing. And I'm so excited for all of the women who are going to get help now because of this session. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
It has been so fun.
Stay healthy, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye, Dr. Rowe. Bye, Tricia.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.